order the Pittsylvania County Service Authority Board of Commissioners regular meeting Tuesday, June 16th, 2023, 30 p.m. in the Chatham Community Center.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Dudley.
Present.
Mr. Farmer.
Here.
And we are remote. Can you give us your address, Mr. Farmer?
328 West Sandpiper Terrace, Connecticut, North Carolina.
Thank you. Mr. Ingram.
Present.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Scares.
Here.
Mr. Warren.
Here. And just for the record, due to the fact we've not updated the PCSA bylaws at this point, Mr. Farmer is participating in listening only, right, Mr. Farmer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Wichita's with you. Are there any revisions to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Davis, seconded by Mr. Scares. Is there any discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Dudley.
Yes.
Mr. Ingram.
Yes.
Mr. Scares.
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Yes. Consent agenda, item 5A, which would be the only thing on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes. Board's pleasure.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Dudley, seconded by Mr. Scares. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call.
Okay, Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Dudley.
Yes.
Mr. Ingram.
Yes.
Mr. Scares.
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Yes. We're down to item 6, hearing of the citizens. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? Is it necessary for me to read it since no one's here?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. We're down to 7A, new business, FY 2021 PCSA budget adoption. Ms. Vanderhyde.
Yes, in your packet that you have before you, it has a copy of that proposed budget. And basically, I used the information that I got from the PCSA to craft the budget. I did speak with them as far as the need for separating water fund from sewer fund. So it's pretty much set up how our landfill fund currently operates. We have collections and disposal the same way with water and sewer. According to the revenues that came in, it looks like it's about a 65 water, 35% sewer split. So that's how we've broken out the expenditures so that we can basically follow those and know what's been spent for which segment. So this is a $2.9 million budget. It does include the fee to pay the county for those employees that will be housed in the county departments. You will notice that there are salaries and wages that are left in the PCSA budget. Even though those employees will be county employees and will get benefits from the county and be under the county's payroll, they will be charged directly to the PCSA budget, and that would be the Director of Public Works along with 4 line workers that actually service the water and sewer lines, and also there's an administrative assistant that will remain in that office. So all of those salaries are here. So that's the difference that you'll see in the fee, and we'll go over that next. But do you all have any questions about the budget? And this will all be kept separate from everything else, just like our landfill. It will operate very similarly. It will be handled like an enterprise fund.
Okay, what's the board's pleasure?
Chairman, I make a recommendation that we approve the budget, PCSA budget for 2021.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Scares, seconded by Mr. Ingram. Is there any discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Dudley.
Yes.
Mr. Ingram.
Yes.
Mr. Scares.
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Yes. Down to 7B, amendment to PCSA County Service Agreement approval. Ms. Vanderhyde.
Yes, so the only difference that you'll see in the services agreement compared to the one that you approved before is the difference in taking those workers out that directly are correlated with water and sewer. Those were in the service agreement last time, so the amount changed. Since that they will be housed directly in Service Authority, we won't get any type of payment for those employees. So the amount went from $733,200 down to $303,116. So you'll see the change there in page 1 and also in the Exhibit A, which kind of lines out exactly how we came up with those costs. And we'll have corresponding revenue items in our general fund that'll show these amounts coming in, and they'll be broken out just like this in our general fund.
Any questions for Ms. Vanderhyde? Okay, board's pleasure.
Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the amendment for the PCSA County Service Agreement per Exhibit A.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Scarce, seconded by Mr. Davis. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Dr. Miller? Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Scarce?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes. Okay, we're down to 5C, Pittsylvania County Service Authority Employee Spotlight. Ms. Cassidy. That don't look like Ms. Cassidy.
She's the one being spotlighted, but I wasn't going to make her spotlight herself.
Oh, okay.
So since most of you guys are new to the Service Authority Board, we thought it'd be a good opportunity to highlight some of our longest-serving employees. And Ms. Cassidy was the first one to come up because she has been with the Service Authorities for 40 years. So she helped me write this, and I made a few edits, but she doesn't mind. But Ms. Cassidy is back here with me, hiding in the corner. She started working for the PCSA on a part-time basis in 1979. She was hired by Mr. Clarence Edmonds, who was the first director of the authority. Her mother, Thelma Cassidy, also worked for the PCSA. At the time Ms. Cassidy started, just 4 years after the authority's creation, the main office was located in the smokehouse of the Edmonds property, and Ms. Cassidy balanced the books on the Edmonds dining room table with the family dog and 2 cats as assistants. The following year, I think she was very excited to get her own office in the new authority headquarters, which were located at the corner of Moorfield Bridge Road and Westover Drive. Over the years, she remembered funds being so tight that they would have to wait until the mail came in to see if there was enough money to pay the bills or make payroll. When she started, billings were done on postcards with the water usage and costs calculated using adding machines and typed up on typewriters. The meters were hand-read, and readings were written down on ledgers by hand. If one of the meter readers was on vacation or sick, the office ladies would go out and write the readings down for the meter readers. She was sometimes surprised as to what they would find in the meter boxes: spiders, snakes, and even a kitten. She recalls the financials being done by hand on ledger books and would fill up your desk, and all reports had to be typed on a typewriter. In the beginning, they had only the best equipment you could buy directly from the military surplus office in Richmond. And we still have some of those desks. Actually, the majority of our desks are still the surplus. One particular equipment failure resulted in a fall from a chair, but luckily she fell between the typewriter and the wall, causing no damage except the embarrassment. I was witness to her second fall when she fainted a few years ago and left a perfectly head-shaped hole in the drywall. We waited a while to repair that just so we could reminisce every so often. Being around for over 40 years, she has seen many customers come and go and was glad at times to see some of them go. She remembers one customer in particular who came to pay his water bill while being very inebriated, and he couldn't get out of our office before losing his lunch. Over the years, she has become good friends with a lot of the PCSA employees and considers them family. Ms. Cassidy is what I would define as a model employee. She's extremely conscientious, she's prompt, and very detail-oriented. Most of the time, I have to beg her to take vacation. I sometimes give her grief about not embracing new technology and leaving the old ways behind. But a few days later, I'll mention needing some documentation from years ago, and in 5 minutes, a copy will be on my desk. It's been my pleasure to work with Ms. Cassida, and her hard work has been the main reason behind the success of the authority. So I'd like to just acknowledge her.
Are there any comments from board members?
I would like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
Some of y'all know that my late sister Judy worked over there for about 25 years or so. And I guess at one time Sharon was her boss lady, and she thought the world of you. And so I think this is a very nice spotlight and very well deserved. Thank you for serving us.
I think it's important to talk about Ms. Cassidy's future with us. As she fulfills this transition as a county employee, she will be kind of number two in Kim's shop. She'll be senior accountant. She'll be handling all of our enterprise funds, IDA, solid waste, water, sewer. So she's going to be joining us up on Center Street, and we're glad to have her. We've got her furniture on order. She's got her whole new little place coming, so we're looking forward to working with her and adding her to Kim's team.
I'm not sure she's gonna like all that new technology right now. You'll get used to it though. Congratulations and thank you for the 40 years. What a blessing.
I don't think they have any cats. So.
Oh, okay.
But thank you. It's always, every year when they have the service awards post this year with Corona, I'm always amazed at how many employees we have in the county that have 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years. You know, the sheriff always has some that have a lot of years. So it's just an evidence of the citizens' commitment to the county when they get passionate about it. So 40 years, that's amazing. Thank you very much for your service. Okay, we're down to staff reports. Mr. Adcock.
Yes, sir. I'm going to put these two items that we have there are going to kind of be covered together. As Mr. Smith mentioned, they're regarding the the CARES Act. Earlier this month, county staff met with Dewberry engineers regarding some potential funding opportunities through the CARES Act, which everyone knows is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. Through this act, the EDA, the U.S. Economic Development Administration, was appropriated $1.5 billion in additional economic adjustment assistance program funds to assist communities impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. While receipt of these funds are earmarked to assist communities respond to and recover from the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic, we felt like the project examples provided by the EDA were broad enough for us to make an application for these funds on some recently discussed projects. And the one point that they pointed out, where it says construction of infrastructure and facilities to support economic recovery, including the deployment of broadband, we felt that was fairly broad enough to at least for us to attempt to get some of this funds. So I'm going to go over these projects in a little more detail and how they were developed and some other information. The Horseshoe Road water extension is one of them that we're going to request. In 2017, received a petition for water service from residents along the eastern portion of this road, which is out 58 West. The service request locations were starting. We have some service down Horseshoe Road about a half a mile from 58, and the requests were they came in mostly along the eastern portion of the road there. You can see we had one at 621, which was right at the end of our current extension, and then there's a pretty long, about a half a mile stretch where we didn't have any, and then they're all clustered together. And that kind of extends the cost somewhat, because you have to get beyond that, and you're not picking up any revenue in those areas. And then we had a couple there. We had another small stretch, maybe a quarter mile. Then we had another little cluster right there at the end, the 2800s. I don't know why we didn't get any in the 3,000 going on around. As you know, as the Horseshoe Road is a horseshoe, and it connects back to 58 West. But the petition that we received kind of stopped there at 2,800. So I don't know if there's any problems with the wells in the 3,000 block or not. But what we did is we mapped those locations out. We came up with a footage. It was approximately 2.23 miles. And it's, you can see on the eastern portion. And then we developed a cost estimate utilizing historic pricing data from previous jobs or bids. Our minimum size pipe when we do something like this in order to get hydrant fire service is a 6-inch pipe. So we have the pipe, the fire hydrants, the asphalt driveway repairs. We have other miscellaneous features of the water line, blow-off services, erosion control, and then we come up with a total construction cost estimate. So this project was about just shy of $500,000. So what we do is we put together a cost analysis, and we discuss the project, and sometimes our board looks at it maybe a 10-year payback, but at this situation, because of the well troubles these citizens were having, we looked at a 20-year payback. So we kind of backed into that based on the anticipated revenue of the number of customers that we're asking, which were about 20 customers. I think we analyzed 22 customers. How much revenue we get based on average usage and the cost of the water, and we backed that in, and we figured we could invest about $185,000 in that project. So we came up with a cost, leftover cost that would go back to the customer, and that's how we kind of came up with that. And we presented that back to the citizens at the time, and of course at $13,000 per citizen, it wasn't well received, but that's kind of where that project stopped at the time. So we're going to try to put this one in. It is in a opportunity zone, which I noticed that before I came over today, which is a good thing. I think that's something that the EDA will look at when analyzing these projects. But because it does not, I guess we did make some connection with the coronavirus because of the fact that without having clean water, folks working at home, they need to have clean water at home. That, you know, it may have been a little bit of a stretch, but we did make some connection with the coronavirus, and we're going to at least throw it out there and see if we can't get them to bite on that. The second project we're looking at is back in 2018, we applied for a USDA Rural Development Grant to study all of our pump stations. What we were looking at was we were having a hard time trying to decide where we were spending our capital, improve its money without a study of these pump stations. So we looked at all of our pump stations, and we currently have 15 sewer pump stations. We have 5 water booster stations, and the age varies from the early 80s up to just a few years ago. And on the sewer stations, the same thing. We have a late 70s pump station at Brockway. It goes all the way up to one we did just about 10 years ago at Witcher Road. But just because of the age does not necessarily mean the pump station is in critical condition. So we had to look at all kinds of different things. Here's a map of our sewer stations. It's just we're spread out throughout the county. We have one at Vista Point, just north of Chatham, on both east and west ends of the county. Water stations are a little bit less, but we also have a water station at Vista Point. So what we do in order to evaluate these pump stations, we do mechanical and electrical tests. How are the pumps operating? What are the security issues? Is there any visual corrosion, wear, or leakage? What kind of controls they have? And then we put them in a matrix to see how they rank. So we came up with a ranking system, and the project, the full upgrade, it was about $2 million to fully upgrade all of these pump stations. The second alternative was a partial upgrade, which got them in kind of a condition that was acceptable, but is not as thorough as the full upgrade. And that was $1.15 million. But at the time, I didn't really want to take a full bite of all of that project. My thought was to take our normal annual surplus and allocate it to the most critical stations every year, because I didn't feel like it was necessary to jump and bite them all at one time, because we're able to keep a lot of these running, and there's nothing that really completely breaks down that So what we put that project in the submittal as well. So and we also looked at part of this assessment, the pump station assessment, the Brockway station. We looked at doing, instead of replacing the pump station itself, we looked to take that pump station out of service and put in a gravity line that comes from Cane Creek, and it'll serve Brockway, and it'll also serve a potential economic development parcel in that area that had been studied previously by Dewberry. So we're going to include that project, which we've already done about 80% of the design on that. So that will be included as a separate project, hopefully, that may stand out by itself from these other pump station assessments. And also, we looked at a small portion of the 58 West interconnection project just to get up to Tunstall High and Middle Schools, and also to take those wells out that we discussed sometime in the past that are contaminated wells, and to be able to hopefully use some of the the DEQ money that has been promised to us to get those contaminated wells off of the well system. So we kind of looked at that as a partial of that big project. We put that in the hat too, just to see if the potential exists for us to get some funding on that. So those are the 4 that we're going to send off to West Piedmont Planning District Commission with their assistance to submit them to EDA for the ACT funding.
Any questions for Mr. Adcock?
Not necessarily a question for Mr. Adcock, but a comment more so for David. A few weeks ago, David, I asked you about maybe the possibility of adding Stony Mill Road to the Horseshoe Road project. And you said something about maybe having Dewberry include that. Did that transpire?
We haven't got to that. No, we have not.
Yeah, I had a request from a citizen that goes back before 2017 on Stony Mill Road, Miss Patricia Taylor, and that would be her 4 apartments, and there's several houses around. And so I was hoping maybe if this came through that if you could do both projects at the same time, it just looks to me that it'd be more cost effective once you move the equipment in that general area. You're just talking about basically across 58 on the north side, that maybe both projects could be done at the same time. So,
well, this limited version of the 58 West project that we're looking at actually is in that same area, so that could be an alternative to or an addition to that to connect those, because that'll be going up Stony Mill Road from our connection out on Ingram Road, Stony Mill School Road, and then up Stony Mill Road to the Mount Cross, Tunstall area. So that could be a potential.
Question. The interconnector spot that you're talking about off 58 to go toward Tunstall, where exactly is that at?
That is at Inman Road and Stony Mill School Road.
Gotcha.
Is where it currently ends.
Okay.
So the initial project came down Stony Mill School Road to Stony Mill Road, and then went up towards Tunstall and the Mount Cross intersection there. So if you turn around and went back towards 58, just a few thousand feet, I know you would be at those apartments that you discussed.
But you could connect there somewhere on 58 around Stony Mill School Road and go north toward Tunstall?
Yes, yeah. If you looked at that as a separate project, yeah, you could connect it at 58 West, yeah.
Would I need to make that in the form of a motion to have it included to be the
Well, I think we
feasibility
should.
study?
I think we should see probably if we're even successful in getting a bite on that funding, and then we can, once we do that, then we can go back and look at the actual routing and all that, and best determine the routing to get there.
Thank you.
Mr. Ingram brings up a glaring omission or opportunity for this new PCSA board, and that's how do we prioritize projects? How do we request projects? How do we vet projects? How do we put them in a CIP? All of us are new to this in Pittsylvania County, and there ought to be a way for any of you to bring forward citizen needs and put them in a hopper and figure out where they rank and whether or not there's something we can do. necessarily have a suggestion as to how we do that. I can imagine the longer we're doing this, the more these ideas are gonna pop up, and we probably should figure out a way to
Chair.
vet them.
Mr. Davis.
I'm gonna add to the conversation, I agree with you on that. But however, we got some things already
True.
in the lineup that I think we need to get to them first and get them things covered that are in districts, my opinion. I agree with you, but, I'm just saying, I think we need to cover what we got already from previous board people that, such as my district, that put things in motion as well as others, so. And Mr. Adcock's on that, so that's my feel on it.
And one other item, piggybacking off of that, as we discussed at the last meeting, was we have begun preparation of a RFQ to get bids on doing a comprehensive water and sewer master plan. And we expect to put that on the street probably early July for engineering proposals for that. So that'll give us a guideline, which we really do need, on how to expend our funds going forward. You know, they'll look at population densities and things like that, which help us decide if the project is going to pay for itself in a decent amount of time, and then the areas that we might be able to support our economic development advances and things like that.
I agree with what everyone said, that I think there's actually some more apartments up that side just before, and then we get those Stony Meads.
There is,
Yeah.
and just for the record, I think Ms. Taylor's complained for about 20 years about
Yeah.
bad water right there.
Don't Mr. Holly or something there?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, the apartment's right at the corner.
Yeah.
58, that's a Hollis, yeah.
To go along with what Mr. Smithman said, that, you know, I hope you and Mr. Hicks and him and Mr. Hunt can be working on it. You know, we went through a similar thing with economic development and developing a matrix to help determine that. If you all could work on developing a matrix, how we determine them going forward. But, you know, for me, and I can't speak for the rest of the board, but for me, one of those matrices that ought to carry a lot of points is, like you said, bad wells, contaminated areas, or people that have no ability to get water. I mean, you know, we're responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens.
Sure.
If you can't get water, it affects your health. You know, so, you know, I'm gonna leave that up to the experts to determine how to put that matrix together, but I hope that'll be one factor.
Certainly.
Yes, sir, Mr. Davis.
But that money, how much of that money DEQ is gonna give towards those bad wells? I do agree with Mr. Warren on the bad wells, whether they be in that area or anywhere else, but my thought is that I don't understand necessarily where DEQ steps in if there is a contamination process in place. So that if they do, I never even heard of DEQ in the last 5.5 years ever donate money to anybody.
Well,
Or giving money or whatever.
So the project, don't confuse that with the Horseshoe Road project. The DEQ project is at the intersection of Mount Cross and Stony Mill Road, where it goes up to Tunstall High School. There was some and when the DEQ steps in, it was petroleum contamination from an old store there. And what they have to do when that comes up, they have to put special filters on these personal wells, and the DEQ pays for that. And they pay for that as long as they have to until there's a suitable alternative. So in this situation, they say, okay, well, we have 4 or 5 houses there. They look at 20, 25 years down the road, and they say, well, this is how much we can invest in that project. So they've earmarked, if we could get service up to that intersection and take these folks off of that well, they've earmarked about $200,000. But every time I try to get that clarified, they say, well, you know, it's getting drawn down the longer we wait. That money's getting drawn down because they're taking it to use for contaminated those. So the only time DEQ gets in is when it's that kind of contamination, like a petroleum leak or something like that. But in this case with Horseshoe Road, it's more of just a low quality well. I mean, they have water. It's just that sometimes if it's a drought, sometimes they end up not having the flow they need, or sometimes they may even go dry. but then, you know, they get a rain like we're having this week, and it'll fill back up. But that's the separation between when DEQ gets involved and when they don't get involved.
So to simplify, what I'm hearing you say is DEQ is looking to reduce their losses by hooking onto a line and getting off the well.
Exactly. Yep. That's how the Grit Road project came into existence. The one out in Hurt that goes all the way out, that was contaminated wells. That's how the extension at Dry Fork Road goes all the way out as far as it does. That was a DEQ funded project. So we have a few projects in our systems that are DEQ funded because they were contaminated wells. And they said, you know, you do the design, you administer the construction, and we'll pay for it, and then it becomes part of your system. Sometimes it works out good for us. Sometimes it works not too good because it creates a situation where we're dealing with contaminants and things that you know, we didn't really have the foresight to see when we started the project.
Anybody else for Mr. Adcock? Thank you, Mr. Adcock.
Sure, certainly.
Matters from the commissioners. I'll start with Mr. Dudley.
I have nothing. I just want to say again, congratulations, 40 years. Great day, that's a lot. Thank you for your service.
Mr. Ingram.
No, sir, I'm good.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, Dr. Miller. Mr. Davis.
I would like to compliment you on 40 years of service. I do like to hit the hole in the wall, the head in the wall, because I know how that feels. And I want to thank the sheriff for a good job he's been doing, as well
Absolutely.
as Mr. Adcock. Thank you for your information. So that's all I got to say, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Scary.
To say one question, I'd asked Mr. Smitherman about an issue. I saw a tanker truck getting filled up at the fire hydrant, the last fire hydrant on Mount Cross Road before you get into the county, and I didn't know if we got any feedback on where the city accounts for that water, if that might end up in our coffers, us paying for that tanker being filled up, and I didn't know if you guys had any feedback on that.
What we do have agreements with some bulk water carriers to get water, and what they do is if they can't get it from our office where we can really monitor it, they do, in some situations, they request to get it closer to the project that's going on. And what they do is they call in and they tell us how much gallons they get, and we record it and we bill them. The hydrant that you're talking about in particular, I'm not real sure. That may be the city hydrant, that may be our hydrant. But we do occasionally have people that go and take water without our knowledge. We've talked about this for years on the previous boards, and you know, the solution would be to lock the hydrants, but then we say, well, what do all the volunteer fire departments do when the hydrant's locked? Do we give all of them keys? If we give them all keys, then the problem is going to repeat itself, because then they can make copies of those keys. And you know, some cities do that, but I think it's probably more of a control when they have control of all the. There's no volunteer fire departments; they're all within the organization. And we've tried to address that. We put notifications in the newspaper about the time of the year when tobacco planting starts, that farmers are not to get it without calling us. And for the most part, it's fairly controlled. Swimming pool fillers, they call us a lot. Sellers Brothers, they do that a lot. And other ones are Davis Water is a big bulk water transport company that we have an account with, and they come and they always tell us when they're getting water, and we are able to look at their setup to make sure it meets backflow restrictions and things like that. But the cost of meters, and if it's a big project like a construction project where we know they're going to be using water on a daily basis, we will set up an actual meter on the fire hydrant at that location so that we can go and read that meter, and then we charge them for that. But if you look at our, cost of water, what we pay for water, and I'm not trying to minimize the problem, but it's, we pay from Henry County, it's $1.50 per 1,000 gallons. From the city of Danville, it's $3.50 for 1,000 gallons. When you look at it as a whole, it's not a real huge financial hit. Not that I'm not, like I said, I'm not pushing it under the rug, but sometimes what we have to do to control that is be so much harder because of the size of the county and everything.
What's a tanker hold, the average tanker? 1,500,
Eight.
500, 8,000?
Well, the big tankers, I think, are 8,000, something like
I mean,
that.
like a farm tanker.
1 to 2,000 gallons, probably.
But you have, I would assume, you monitor how much water you pay for versus how much water you cost out.
Yeah.
So is that a?
Well,
significant number?
Well, when you have to factor in other losses too,
Yeah, I understand.
leaks and things like that. And typically, those are so much greater than what you lose. So when we do that analysis, we're typically way under what the average is. So there's an average out there in the United States of how much water is lost typically.
And is somebody, do we have any ordinance, this might be a vague question, do we have any ordinance or anything on the books that, or the sheriff they didn't answer, that if someone takes water without notifying you or whatever, are there any repercussions?
I think
If
it
they
is.
took
I think it
1,800
is in
gallons of
the.
water
Yeah,
there,
well, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that in our water section there, it makes it a crime to steal water.
Yeah, it is in the code.
well, I just think maybe the legislative committee wants to look at that the next time they just have a conversation. You know, and then, I mean, we're doing it with all of our landfill sites, that if someone's
Yeah.
collection sites, if someone's illegally dumping, and we get it, you know.
Certainly.
we get
Busting
fined.
them, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, once you have that situation once or twice, the word gets around, you have it less. Mr. Higgins.
Chris, I understand you say we're paying $1.50 per 1,000 gallons to Henry County and $3.50 to the city of Danville. Don't we have another negotiator that could talk to the city about that, or
We have been in negotiation with the city, and it's in the works.
Good.
Yep.
Anybody else got anything? Mr. Adcock, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, no other business on the agenda, I declare the meeting adjourned.